Kicking off the card, we have a great fight between two prospects, and both of them are coming off fairly significant layoffs. First off, I want to say, man, they did my boy Lucas Roacha dirty with the picture, man. They need to get him a new picture on there. He's looking like me right now in there. But, yeah, man, this is a cool matchup, though. I mean, Clayton Carpenter, he's the elder statesman in this one. He is 28 years old. Lucas Roacha is 24. Carpenter, he's undefeated. He's 7-0. Roacha 17-1. Both fighters got into the UFC through the Contender Series. Lucas Roacha, he got a nasty knockout win. Carpenter won a decision. Only one of them has went on to fight their UFC debut, and that was Clayton Carpenter. Carpenter got a first-round submission over Juan Camilo Ronderos almost 2 years ago at this point, and this will be Roacha's first UFC fight. Roacha hasn't fought in a year since getting the contract, and I feel as far as level of competition goes, that does favor Roacha. But style-wise, this should be a barn burner fight. Both of these guys are super aggressive. They're finishers. On the feet, Lucas Roacha is a pressure fighter. He throws really nice long combinations. He'll attack all parts of the body. He cuts the cage off. He can switch stances. He uses feints to get inside, and he slowly breaks fighters down over time. He tries to wear them out and then take them out later. He can make fighters quit with body punches. His knees are dangerous. And Clayton Carpenter has to be really ready for the knees of Roacha in this fight. We saw him get a brutal knockout knee over Davi Bittencourt, and he has another flying knee knockout on his record. So Roacha definitely is dangerous there, and he has excellent cardio. He has really good confidence. He's shown good speed, so he's hard to hit. And when he does get hit, he eats shots well, so he has a good chin. And he's the type of fighter who likes to feel the pain a little bit, embrace a brawl. Clayton Carpenter, he's more of a natural southpaw. He will switch stances often, though. His last fight, he came out orthodox, so that just shows he's thinking in there, and he can come in and use either stance depending on the matchup. And Carpenter isn't as fluid as Roacha. He doesn't throw as many numbers, but he hits hard and he throws heat. He likes to use switch stance blitzes. He's a really powerful left hook. He'll throw some nice kicks, good leg kicks, good head kicks. He hits hard, and he'll also go to the body. He could take punishment. He had a rough round against Edgar Chairez before coming back in their fight on the Contender Series in round 1. And I feel he won't be as comfortable or confident in a pocket fight. I think that Roacha is going to be better on the feet. And although Carpenter is ultra tough, I think that he's going to have to go to the ground and use that wrestling. And if Lucas Carpenter wants to win, I think he needs to take a page out of his training partner Mario Batista's book, the way Batista just grinded all those, stuck to him like glue. Even if he had to stall, it is what it is, and Carpenter should try to do that versus Lucas Roacha. Lucas Roacha has had issues with fighters taking him down in previous fights, and Roacha tends to get taken down in round 1. He gives his back up, and he will stay calm. He's able to get up and kind of take over in the next 2 rounds when he has the better gas tank. And he's a great athlete. His takedown defense, his scrambling ability is improving every fight, Lucas Roacha. I do think Lucas Roacha is hard to hold down, but Lucas Carpenter, I think he has alright wrestling. I do think he might struggle to take Roacha down, which is what's going to be the tail of the fight, in my opinion. But if he does get the takedown, his grappling is tight. I mean, we saw in his last fight with Ronderos, he got taken down. He quickly locked in a triangle, swept, took the back out the rear naked choke. And if he could take down Lucas Roacha, he's probably going to be able to get that back control and take the round. So Roacha just has to be very aware that if he gets taken out, not to expose his back, and just in general to try to keep it standing. But both these fighters have good conditioning. I feel like Roacha tends to get better as the fight goes on and maybe is a little bit better conditioned, but it's pretty close. And I'm going to slightly go with the underdog in Lucas Roacha to win this fight. Optically, I feel like he's going to be more composed. He's going to be moving forward, which will help him in the eyes of the judges. I think he should land more volume, and if he could defend the takedowns or work back up when taken down, avoid getting his back taken, I think he does more and wins this fight. I think a finish in the later rounds for Roacha is live. If this fight is going his way, slow cooking Carpenter, maybe he could put him away late. Carpenter is tough, though. He's undefeated. He comes from a good gym. So I'm going to give him the respect and say he goes to decision, but Lucas Roacha is going to be my official prediction. I'm going to say he takes his first fight of the night. So what do you think about that prediction, guys? Put a comment down below. Do you like Carpenter in that one, or do you think Roacha can go in there and pull the upset, kind of like how I'm seeing it. So curious to hear what you guys think on that. Put a comment down below. You got Roacha, you got Carpenter. How do you think it's going to go down? On the card, Dan Argueta taking on Cody Haden, and another very interesting fight. And Cody Haden was really impressive on the Contender Series in August, so the UFC is putting him to the test right away. They're giving him a fight pretty quickly, just 6 weeks after his last one, and they're giving him a hard-nosed wrestler in Dan Argueta, who has his UFC career potentially on the line. So Argueta is going to be coming in motivated, and Argueta's shown he is UFC level, but he's just been pitted in hard matchups. He hasn't gotten the results. He's had 5 UFC fights. He only has 1 win. He should have a win over Ronnie Lawrence, though. It became a no contest due to a premature stoppage from the referee. So he was competitive in his loss to Miles Johns, and then his last fight he was looking great before getting caught by Gene Matsumoto. So obviously Argueta is doing well in these fights. He's just finding a way to lose. And Cody Haden, I feel like, is a really good prospect, but he's getting a tough test here because with Dan Argueta, we know what we're going to get. So it's going to come down to if his opponent can counter it. Argueta's a big fighter for the division. He's southpaw. He trains out in California with Cub Swanson, those other killers over there. And he comes in excellent shape. He wants to use his wrestling and grind fighters to a pulp. If he can get to the back in round 1, he's gotten quite a few rear naked chokes. And he also can grind for 15 minutes. His front chokes are good. He's good just in general from that front headlock position at controlling, using it to reverse, and he pushes a hellacious pace. We saw in his last fight, his opponent kept popping back up, and it did get him a little tired, but Argueta normally has elite cardio. His last fight, he got submitted with like 1 second left on the clock in round 2 with a guillotine, but at the end of the day, Argueta's game plan is going to be forward pressure wrestling, so it's up to Cody Haden to find an answer for that. Cody Haden had good wrestling and grappling as well in past showings, but I've seen him get taken down, and I think that he's not really fought a wrestler even remotely at the level of Dan Argueta. And Haden is a striker. On the feet, he brings pressure. He has good lead hand feints. He has nice hand combinations, body head. His leg kicks have good timing, fast, skillful. He mixes up the level of his attacks. He'll go to the body well. Most of his offense is hands. He landed a really nice jab to the body, to left hook to the head that floored his last opponent, and then he got the rear naked choke. And he has a lot of momentum. He's taking a lot of guys out early. Crisp boxing with power. And he's had serviceable wrestling throughout his career. He will work hard to get back up to his feet when he's taken down. His wrestling defense is a little questionable. C. Versig was able to take him down and dominate him in rounds 1 and round 3 of their fight, and he got the back of Haden. He got Haden in a deep choke. Haden did do well in rounds 2 and 3 to defend takedowns a little bit better, but he still got taken down in the third, was mounted at the end of the fight, and cardio for Haden is good. In this fight, obviously, he's going to try to sprawl and brawl, but he definitely slows down. I feel like he's going to have to try to fight through fatigue in this fight and make it a battle of attrition against a guy in Dan Argueta that's going to weaponize the cardio. I'm going to pick Dan Argueta to win this fight. In a stand-up fight, Haden could be competitive with most in the UFC, but Dan Argueta is going to wrestle him. He's not going to let him breathe, and I think that Haden doesn't have the wrestling defense to handle that. I think Argueta could get the back. Argueta has been a ball dropper a little bit lately, but he has to win this fight. And the pressure could be good or bad, so we'll see how that goes for him. But Haden making his UFC debut kind of equalizes the moment for both. And Haden definitely could clip Argueta, maybe knock him out or sub and club him. But I think if he doesn't finish, Argueta wins a decision clearly. He's going to be the minute winner in the fight. And Argueta can get the finish on the mat too. So I'm going to predict Argueta wins a decision. Go with the underdog here. And what do you guys think about that pick? Do you guys think Cody Haden is the goods? You know, I'm kind of curious because I've had a couple fights where I picked Dan Argueta to win and he kind of burned me. So interested to hear what you guys think about that one. So yeah, man, tell me what you think down in the comments. You got Cody, you got Dan Argueta in that fight. Put a like on this video right quick if you're watching it. Just helps the channel. But let's get into this next fight. And this next fight here, we got Julia Polastri taking on Corey McKenna. This is a short notice matchup. where Corey McKenna was originally going to fight Polyana Viana on this date, and I think it actually is a very similar style of matchup for Corey McKenna. It's a girl with good jiu-jitsu off of her back, dangerous on top, and has aggressive striking, but not necessarily the greatest striking. So I think that it's not a big transition for McKenna, and that gives her an advantage because she's had the full camp. And Corey McKenna's kind of been forgotten a little bit. She was the youngest female fighter ever signed to the UFC. She had some hype at one point. She went in there. She got the upset victory over Kay Hansen. Got a couple other wins. But she's had injuries. She's had layoffs. And then she's had a couple of losses that have set her back a little bit. And she's coming back after a few months off where she took a long time off before coming back against Jacqueline and Morum. That fight didn't go well for her. Morum was able to catch her early, submit her in the first round. And you know Corey McKenna, being a girl that dedicated herself to the sport as a teenager, has been fighting for years at this point and is still only in her early 20s. I think that's going to light a fire under her. I think she's going to have a really hard, good training camp, or have had one, and come in here and have a better performance. Because you know that she doesn't want to have that as a lasting memory in her head, going out there, getting submitted super quickly. And Jacqueline Amorim, that girl could submit anyone in the first round. So it's not the worst loss in the world, but you know McKenna's going to be feeling it, wanting to show off more of her skills. And I think because of the fact that that fight was so quick and she was coming back after a long layoff, we haven't really seen McKenna in a long time and seen exactly what she's improved on. I feel like we're going to see improvements from McKenna in the stand-up. I think she's going to have improved boxing. I see her hitting the pads, cracking the pads, and she has a lot better fluidity and hand speed, I feel like. I think she's probably going to have better feints to close the distance and get inside. And I'm just not ready to throw in the towel on Corey McKenna. I know that a lot of people are kind of off the McKenna hype train, and she's the underdog in this fight, which I was a little bit surprised to see. But I still think McKenna has potential. I think that if she improves her boxing, her stand-up, her athleticism keeps getting better. She already has the wrestling. She can get the takedowns, can grind out most girls with the top control. So I think that she's a decent fighter. But Julia Polastri is a dangerous opponent. Polastri is someone that on the feet is a pretty dynamic brawler. She does a good job of throwing long combinations. She'll mix in head kicks, elbows, and if you stay in the pocket with her and just exchange, Polastri's hell on wheels to deal with. She's tough. Her last fight, though, we saw where Knudsen was fainting. She was moving. She was bouncing in and out. She was using the lead leg kicks, and you could see Polastri was extremely frustrated with a fighter that wasn't staying in the pocket with her, and she couldn't really get much going in terms of the stand-up. She did get a couple of takedowns and did well on top, but I feel like in this fight, if McKenna uses her feints and is able to be mobile, I think that she's going to do a fairly decent job of not letting Polastri get off with these longer combinations. And then when Polastri gets aggressive, just try to clinch or get the takedown. I think McKenna is going to have the wrestling advantage, be able to get on top. And Polastri does have an aggressive guard. We did see McKenna submitted in her last fight, but I don't think that Polastri is even close to the same level as someone like a Jacqueline Amorim off of her back. And I've seen McKenna take down and blanket better jiu-jitsu fighters, in my opinion, than Polastri. So I'm going with McKenna, man. I just feel like the younger girl that's a one-time, big-time prospect, still in her young 20s, I have to pick her to win as an underdog against a 31-year-old fighter coming in here 0-1 in the UFC on short notice. I just feel like if McKenna's going to have anything to say about being a potential future player in the sport, this has to be a fight that she gets the job done and gets the win in. So McKenna is going to be the prediction for me as the slight underdog. And up next here, we got another short notice fight. Junior Tafa taking on Sharaf. Heavyweight fight. Kind of hard fight to predict here. I feel like I'm not going to have a long breakdown on this one. Sharaf is a guy that I'm a little bit aware of because he trains at Extreme Couture. He has had a few fights out there in California that he's done well in. all his wins so far, I believe he's 3 or 4-0 as a pro, and at a couple amateur fights or first round knockouts. So he's went out there, he's taken everyone out early. You see him training years ago with guys like Luke Rockhold, and you see him on YouTube, like he's being interviewed by the Schmo years ago and things like that. So he's been around kind of like the higher end of the sport for a little while now. And I think that people see potential in him because the guy is athletic. You could tell that he moves well for heavyweight. And he has one-punch knockout power. Crazy power in his hands. But all we've seen so far is him go in there against overmatched opponents, him land a couple big hammers, and them get knocked out unconscious. So we don't really know much about Sean Sharaf. Whereas with Junior Tafa, this is the type of style matchup that he wants, right? I mean, at least from what I've seen with Sean Sharaf so far, he doesn't have much wrestling or grappling to go with. He does train out of Extreme, so maybe he's going to come in here and show a different element of his game and surprise Junior Tafa. But if this is a stand-up fight, Tafa has that glory kickboxing experience. He has the long-range weapons, pretty technical stand-up. He's athletic, so you'd think Tafa would get the job done. I mean, he's the one with the UFC experience with this fight camp, the one that's been getting ready, but I don't think they've opened a line yet. If they have, I haven't seen it yet. I'm assuming that Sean Sharaf's going to open as the underdog, and I feel like this is a pass, man. I mean, Sharaf has that one-shot power. Tafa's not that experienced or trustworthy either, so it's going to be, in my opinion, whoever lands first probably wins, and I'll say that Junior Tafa gets it done, but not a fight I'm really looking forward to from a betting perspective. And this next fight, this is going to be a quick one for me as well because it's kind of a pass for me. I think the line's a little wide. Themba Gorimbo, he has kind of came into the UFC and taken it by storm with all the outside antics, where it seems like this guy is a problem every fight camp. And but man, he's been putting in the performances, been getting the wins in the octagon. He lost to AJ Fletcher in his debut, but since then he's won 3 fights in a row. He's looked pretty dominant in all 3. And Nico Price, he got off the snide in his last fight, got the win after a 3-fight losing skid. And obviously, hardcore UFC fans know about Nico. He's been in the UFC for almost 10 years at this point and had some really nasty knockouts back in the day. But recently, he's had a lot of injuries, layoffs, hasn't been getting a lot of wins, and his last win over Alex Morono, it wasn't an awe-inspiring W. It was kind of just a battle of the worst, and Nico Price went out there and was a little bit less bad than Alex Morono that night. But with this one, Themba Gorimbo is going to be way faster on the feet. I mean, Nico Price looks like he's fighting like he's stuck in mud these days, man. His legs just have abandoned him. He has no explosiveness anymore, and I feel like it takes away a major part of his striking arsenal in his game because his striking was already not that good or technical. It was just he could explode, and he was dynamic with long arms. He'd close that distance and land a bomb, or he'd catch you as you're coming in and make you pay for being wild in an exchange and knock you out. But now he doesn't have that speed or explosiveness to do that, so he more has to just rely on toughness, pressure, and occasionally timing a big punch. But it's a lot harder for him to land. And he does have solid grappling. Like, his top control is good. If he can get on top, he could stuff submissions and keep the position. We saw in his last fight with Alex Morono, he defended some really fast, slick setups from Morono off of his back. And his wrestling is all right, but I feel like Themba is going to be able to defend the takedowns or take him down himself more than likely. Themba has shown he has really solid wrestling, and Nico isn't good off his back. That's one thing where Themba could definitely exploit him. I think Themba could finish him on the ground potentially, but Nico obviously hard guy to finish historically, and he has those weird knockouts from bottom where he was able to get the upkick KO, the finish over Randy Brown, but he's also been ground and pounded and stopped via strikes in the past multiple times. So kind of hit or miss off of his back, like I was saying. But I feel like Themba is in his prime, and he's better on the feet in terms of speed. He's going to potentially be able to hit takedowns, probably control the fight by being the superior wrestler. His cardio is on point training out there in Miami, and he has a lot of motivation. It seems like he's working really hard to change his life. So Gorimbo has to be the prediction for me, but I think that the line is wide because if Gorimbo struggles to get the takedowns or maybe he gets stuffed in reverse and Price gets on top, Price has that veteran savvy to maybe steal another decision win here. But I think that if Price wins, it's going to be more because Themba Gorimbo dropped the ball, didn't look that good, more than Nico Price won the fight. So having said that, I think Themba Gorimbo is going to go out there and get this win. I just think that the line is a little off. And the next fight we got JSP, Jonathan Pearce taking on Pat Sabatini. Very interesting matchup. I feel like a few years ago I would have definitely pretty heavily favored Sabatini in this fight. I think you look at it from a skills perspective and a matchup perspective, Sabatini should win. Jonathan Pearce has been submitted multiple times. He's had issues with guys that have really good top games and good grappling. Most of the time when he loses, he's getting out-grappled or fighting someone that can defend his wrestling and out-wrestle him or just keep it standing. He hasn't done bad against pure wrestlers, but fighters that actually have that grappling element, he hasn't been able to beat them quite as often. And you see JSP get dominated on the ground on multiple occasions. I do feel like if Sabatini can take him down, he's going to be able to do a lot of damage with the elbows. I think he's going to be able to potentially submit Jonathan Pearce. So I believe that Sabatini has the better grappling, especially from the top position. And I also believe that on the feet, it is competitive because I think Sabatini moves well, throws big punches, and he's kind of awkward with the striking. He doesn't have knockout power, but his striking is serviceable. It's just at this point, his chin is very questionable. You've seen him in the UFC. When he fought Jamal Emmers, he got dropped super quick, probably less than a minute, ended up coming back in the heel hook in that one, but then Damon Jackson dropped him, knocked him out in a minute and 9 seconds. Diego Lopez in his most recent fight knocked out Sabatini in a minute and 30 seconds. So Sabatini's just been getting clipped early and taken out. So it makes you very nervous about his chin, how he's doing going forward in his career, how he's going to do. He hasn't fought in a year. So coming off of a layoff, which is probably smart, he has stayed active with some grappling matches. But, I don't know. I feel like Sabatini may be towards the end of his career. He's 33 years old, almost 34, taking these knockout losses in 2 of his last 3 fights. So unless he bounces back here with a really good performance, it could be the end of the line for Pat Sabatini. And he's taking on a hungry guy in JSP who had that long winning streak where he won 5 in a row, had beaten guys like Christian Rodriguez, Darren Elkins, Kai Kamaka, some good wins in there, but got ninja choked against Joe Anderson Brito in a fight he was pretty much dominating, and then took the loss to David Onama the last time that he went out there. So he has 2 losses in a row, and JSP needs this win. I think that he's going to be looking to have the same game plan he did against Elkins, using the jab, using those front kicks up the middle, trying to throw straight shots, and find that chin of Sabatini, sit him down, and take him out. And I do kind of like the fight doesn't go to decision in this fight more than I like a side, because I think that JSP probably has slightly better stand-up and could find the knockout. I think he's the bigger guy and the better wrestler. But Sabatini, if he can get on top, is going to be very dominant. He has serviceable wrestling himself, and his striking and movement is probably a little better than JSP's. So, honestly, if Sabatini wasn't coming off these knockout losses and the layoff wasn't a little older, I would rock with Sabatini, but I'm going to go with JSP via first or second round knockout. I just don't trust Sabatini's durability. I think JSP might land a front kick to the face or a big punch and get Sabatini out of there. So I'm going with JSP in this fight. And next here we got CJ Vergara taking on Ramazan Temirov. And Temirov, this is going to be his debut in the UFC. He is someone that is 17-2. He's a fighter that trains in Uzbekistan. He trains out of that Makhmud Muradov team, and he looks pretty solid. I mean, the guy's won 9 fights in a row. It seems like the UFC always tends to give these very difficult matchups to CJ Vergara, but, Temirov, he's a dynamic stand-up fighter. He has big power. He's fast. He's explosive. He's sharp. He has nice kicks, good straight punches, nasty spin kicks, and he's really good at using feints and forward pressure to open his strikes up, but he can also use lateral footwork to pot shot. His last fight, he did get dropped early, but he was able to end up catching his opponent, knocking him down, and then getting a finish. And he can be wild, kind of overextend on his punches. He does have a kind of short reach. He only has 61-inch reach, so sometimes he can overextend a little bit, but his speed and power are pronounced. He has 10 knockouts. He's never been finished with strikes. And he has solid takedown defense in space. His athleticism helps him with the sprawl, defend takedowns really well. But he can get held against the cage. He can get a little tired. Cage wrestling is something that I think he struggles with a little bit. So that's something that fighters in the UFC, I think, are going to try to exploit him with. And we haven't seen much grappling from Ramazan either. He has 1 submission win, 1 submission loss. And I think testing him on the ground is what a lot of fighters are going to try to do. Vergara, pressure fighter, heavy hands, kind of bad defense. I feel like if they're at range striking in this fight, he's in big trouble, but he has good boxing, and I think he's going to want to try to get that Muay Thai clinch, throw knees, throw elbows, where he's shown in the past that he's pretty solid from that position. He keeps it basic, but if you aren't ready for the pressure from Vergara, and if he could land clean, he does have some power, so he's not a horrible striker. And if he can get on top and mix in takedowns, that would be his easiest path to victory. I feel like he has nasty ground and pound, but it's likely going to be an issue for him to get it to the mat. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Temirov. So find Vergara. I'm looking to pressure into a clinch. Use that clinch to try to break Temirov. If you can get a takedown, get the takedown. And just try to make it an ugly fight. But I think that Ramazan Temirov is going to get a knockout in this fight and become the first fighter to knock out CJ Vergara. I'll actually predict that he wins with a spinning heel kick to the head in the first round. And I know I'm going out on a limb a little bit because Vergara has never been knocked out, but I'm going to say Temirov becomes the first fighter to get the KO on CJ Vergara. And just before we get to the main card, man, hit the like button, put a comment down below. Do you agree with my prediction so far? Do you disagree? But first fight on the main card, Abdulrazak Alhassan and Josh Fremd. This, to me, is a bit of a tricky fight. I agree with the line. I know a lot of people are hammering that Razak line. They're feeling confident, but I could see this potentially maybe a little bit of a trap fight because Alhassan is the better fighter. You look at him, I think that he has multiple paths to victory. He could use those big hooks. He can close the distance and potentially land a big bomb on Josh Fremd. Or we could see Abdulrazak Alhassan use that newfound cardio from training at elevation that I think he has a little bit more belief in and clinch and wrestle hard for 3 rounds and be able to implement that kind of style of a game plan because I think that Josh Fremd, not even in his last fight, but just in general, has been exposed as having subpar takedown defense. He's someone that will scramble hard and work to get back up to his feet, but I just don't see him as the best defensive wrestler. And at the end of the day, I think that Abdulrazak Alhassan, if he wants to go that route, could take Josh Fremd down. But the stand-up, it's going to be interesting because I do think that Alhassan is the more explosive guy. He clearly has the power advantage, but he's very low volume, whereas with Josh Fremd, you're getting a long-range guy that's going to be southpaw, throwing a lot of kicks, and not really giving Razak that distance that he wants to strike with. So I could see Razak being very infrequent with his offense, mainly throwing only low kicks, and if he struggles to get the takedown and is stuck on the feet and can't find the knockout early, Josh Fremd gets that range, uses that reach, and runs away with the decision. But I just don't trust Josh Fremd. I don't like him as a fighter. I feel like he lacks physicality. He lacks grit. He lets guys take him down, control him too easily. He did well in his fight with Fluffy Hernandez, but then you look at the fight with Petrosky, it was just pathetic performance from Josh Fremd there. I don't think that Fremd puts enough on his strikes, and he is, in my opinion, going to struggle with confidence in being aggressive against Abdulrazak Alhassan because of the power coming back at him. But Abdul Razak, another thing that's a little bit negative in my opinion about this fight is he just had that full training camp for Cody Brunage, and the fight didn't end up really going down. They did weigh in, they rang the bell and they were in there, but ended up being a no contest because of a foul super early into the fight, and it didn't continue. So Razak is getting back-to-back training camps now pretty quick in succession. He's going to have to do 2 fairly close weight cuts, and he's almost 40 years old, so that's just throwing me off a little bit as well. I mean, is Abdul going to maybe be a little burned out here? I don't know, but I'm still going to roll with him because I think that he's improved his skill set, and I think he mentally is maybe in a little bit better place, and I think that he'll be able to either get that early knockout like he has in all of his wins, or win via decision for the first time in his career by mixing it up, clinch control, couple takedowns, and getting the win in that fashion. So I am going to go with Abdul Razak Alhassan, but to me, I'm passing on this fight, and I'm kind of a little bit worried about Abdul Razak maybe having a crap performance. And continue through the card, this time we got Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono in a veteran versus veteran fight. This fight to me is another tricky one, man, where I think everyone is putting all their chips on D-Rod, and I just don't agree with that. I feel like D-Rod, his last fight, that was the best D-Rod you're ever going to see ever in his career ever again, I think, because had his back up against the wall. He had to win that fight to get a new contract in his eyes. That was the last fight on his deal, and kind of got a saving grace there because of Kelvin Gastelum's significant weight miss. D-Rod got to sign a new fight contract before that fight even happened, and then went on and put on a banger with Kelvin, took the loss, but now he has a new fight contract. He's 40 years old. I just don't know exactly if he's going to have the same motivation entering this fight that he did the Kelvin fight, where he had it all on the line, and he still took the loss. He still got tired in the fight with Kelvin. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and now he's inserted as an over 2-1 favorite against a guy in Alex Morono, who is a fighter with over 20 UFC fights and a winning UFC record that's been able to get double-digit upsets as the underdog in the UFC, and I feel like the line should be a lot closer. Morono is coming off that loss to Nico Price where he looked really bad. He gassed out, but that was a different style. I mean, Nico Price was pressuring him, trying to take him down. There was a lot of grappling in the first round where Morono threw a lot of submissions up and got close, but couldn't get the finish, and I think that gassed him. And this fight, D-Rod isn't going to be looking to take him down. I don't think there's going to be as much taxing portions of the fight for Morono. I think he's going to be able to keep the pace a little bit better with it being a pure stand-up battle. With Rodriguez, I mean, ripping the body on Morono is what you're going to want to do, man. Go to that body, try to see if you can wear on that gas tank or just take him out with body shots, because Morono is a little soft to the body. Both these guys actually have that same issue, but Rodriguez is a lot better body puncher. And just in general, Rodriguez has that southpaw boxing jab, those really nasty combinations. I feel like his hands are super crisp, but he doesn't let a lot of strikes go unless you're in the pocket with him. And when he does go, he'll go in combination. He throws hard. He's throwing numbers. And I do think he has a good chance to get Morono out of there and knock him out, because I think Morono is a little bit suspect in terms of his durability. I think that that's been one of his biggest issues in the UFC, even though he's been doing well in a couple of these fights that he's had, that he's taken losses in. He's just got it clipped and knocked out, and Daniel Rodriguez definitely has that ability. But Morono's a tricky stand-up striker. The guy is very awkward with his footwork. He's moving around all the time. He's a hard target to hit, and then he has nice timing on these punches that he throws and lands, and kind of awkward kicking style. He can be high volume. He can kind of sting you with heavier shots than you expect, and he's gotten some knockdowns and things like that. And I feel like on the feet, it's going to be really competitive with Morono edging it until he gets knocked out, if that happens, or until he wins a decision. And I don't think D-Rod is going to look to mix it up. I mean, Morono has bad takedown defense. Maybe D-Rod could take him down. He is the bigger guy too, but Morono has a nasty guard. I think if he does grapple with Rodriguez, he's going to get the submission. So D-Rod, if he wins, I think it's going to be a knockout win, and I do think that's on the table. But if Morono doesn't get knocked out, I think he's going to come in here a little bit more motivated. You know that was embarrassing to gas out like that versus Nico Price, being a veteran. And if he has any gas left in the tank, this is a fight that I think he can get the win. This is two guys that are towards the end of their careers, obviously, but Morono is significantly younger, and he actually has had the more success in the UFC. I feel like it's a very competitive fight. The line should be closer, and due to that, it's pushing me to Morono. So I'm going to pick Morono. If it was more of a pick 'em, maybe I would go with D-Rod, but because of where the line is at, I'm going to say Alex Morono gets the win in this fight via decision. And this next fight, I'm not too excited about this one. I'm not going to spend a long time on this one. I think the line is way too wide on this fight, but at the same time, I'm still picking Grant Dawson. I've seen Rafa Garcia in other fights where he got taken down, he got his back taken, beat up a little bit, and coming off a torn ACL surgery for Rafa Garcia, I just don't know exactly how his takedown defense is going to look coming back here. On the feet, I think it is competitive. I think the southpaw stance for Dawson is a bit of an issue for Garcia because Garcia likes to get a lot of his offense done off the jab, and I don't know if that's going to be available for him in this fight. But Garcia does have good hand speed, kind of underrated hand speed, straight punches, solid boxing, good pressure. And if he can defend the takedowns, put some heavy punches on Dawson. We've seen Dawson knocked out. We've kind of seen him break before in his fight with Ricky Glenn. So there's been a couple holes that we've seen from Dawson, but he's a specialist, man, and his striking isn't that bad either. I mean, he has long-range weapons, kind of awkward and hittable, but Garcia isn't necessarily a one-hitter quitter, knockout artist type of guy. I feel like Dawson is probably going to be able to hit the takedowns and do what he does, backpack him and get the win there. You look at Garcia, he does train with good grapplers out there in California, and I think he's going to be a tough guy. Maybe he'll be difficult to submit. I'm not really too sure. I mean, this could be a fight Dawson goes out there and justifies the price tag, makes it look easy, gets that quick choke over Garcia and goes home early. Or it could be a 3-round backpack performance from Grant Dawson. Or it could be a harder fight than we expect. So what do you guys think about this one? This is another fight that I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments. Put a comment down below. Tell me, do you think that Dawson is going to go out here, blitz him, and get the submission? Do you think Dawson is going to struggle a little bit? Or do you think Dawson is going to go out there and put on a 3-round clinic like he did against Demir's Mugulov type? So I'm seeing people showing love to Garcia, but I'm not necessarily on that train. I feel like to beat Grant, you need to have big power or be elite in one area, and I think that Garcia is kind of a well-rounded guy that's not great anywhere. So Dawson, I think, is going to exploit that and use his skill set and get the win. And next fight, Njokuani taking on Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden, opportunistic knockout artist. He comes to fight in good shape. He's durable, and I think he takes way too much damage, but most of the time he's able to survive to decisions. He is dangerous in brawling range, and he has a really nasty left hook, big right hands. He comes in good shape, and when fighters slow down, he will start to throw Superman punches, flying knees. He has a couple highlight reel finishes, and he has a good jab, nice leg kicks. He's fairly active. Defensively, he holds his hands by his waist, so he's extremely hittable, eats a ton of punches in almost every fight. But he's good at hanging in there, though, chipping away, and when the opportunity arises, exploding, finishing the match. And he has good takedown defense, so when fighters continue to shoot in on him, he can get them tired. He has been getting taken down a little bit more recently. In this fight, that's not going to be an issue, though. And his wrestling offense isn't really there. He has a big double, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to take Chidi down. If he does, then he's going to be at a good advantage on top, and that's going to be where he wants to be. But as of now, Gooden is kind of finisher bust. He has 19 finishes. He's 5-7 in decisions, but in the UFC, he's 0-4 in decisions. So he has needed a finish to get these wins when he has gotten them in the UFC. and kind of has his back against the wall here because he doesn't have the best UFC record. But Chidi Njokuani, dynamic stand-up fighter, elite Muay Thai. He moved down to 170 his last fight, which I was a little skeptical about, but he made weight. He won his debut, and I feel like he fought extremely conservatively versus Reese McKee. McKee should have jumped on Njokuani early, but he didn't, and Njokuani was extremely defensive. He was just kind of staying at range with his hands high, leg kicking. He eventually settled in, started to land more to more parts of the body, worked the clinch. He is phenomenal with the clinch, but it was a lackluster fight, and McKee did have a lot of success holding Chidi against the cage for a lot of that match too, but this fight, I think Chidi is going to look to do the same thing, and it should be effective. He's fighting a guy who isn't a crazy pressure fighter or anything, and I think it's going to allow Chidi to pepper Gooden at distance for a lot of the fight. He needs to work the jab, the low kicks. If Gooden closes the gap, I do think Chidi's going to be the better clinch fighter in terms of weapons, with knees, with elbows. The one thing for Chidi is he has to be able to maintain the pace, because if you can't finish Gooden early, he can't afford to get tired. And Chidi is a little bit of a quitter. When adversity hits, you'll see him start to shoot sloppy takedowns, give up submissions or get pounded out without much resistance. And Chidi should get the first round knockout here or decision, but it's a dog or pass to me because Gooden is dangerous. He's better on the ground. He has better conditioning. I think he has more heart. So if Gooden can weather a storm, maybe he can work his way on top, land a bomb, put Chidi away. But skill-wise, though, there's a huge disadvantage at range. In the clinch, I think Chidi has a big advantage there as well. And I just don't think that Gooden has the wrestling to bring it to the ground. So I think Chidi's going to win here and become 2-0 at welterweight. In the co-main event, we got Brad Tavares taking on Jun Young Park. Another good fight. I actually liked the main card more than I thought on this fight night. So I'm a little bit more excited for it now that I've broken it down a little bit more and just thought about these matchups a little bit more. But Brad Tavares, Jun Young Park, it's a tough one, I feel like, as well. I've said that a lot on a lot of these fights, but I just think it's true. I mean, Park, he hasn't fought someone that has the striking prowess of someone like Brad Tavares. I mean, who have we seen Park fight that throws nice calf kicks, that has good basics, nice jab, good 1-2s down the middle? We haven't really seen too many clean strikers that Park has fought. He's fought a lot of grapplers. He's fought a lot of brawlers and stuff like that, but it's going to be a real clean technical striker. And Park is a guy that is a little bit plotty with this pressure, but he comes forward, he throws a really nice jab and has excellent volume with his hands when he can back you up. And that's what Tavares does not want to have happen, and where he can't be in this fight, because Tavares' chin is definitely getting a little bit suspect, and he likes to play in the pocket and exchange, and he's good at it, but when he gets clipped, he just doesn't take these shots as well anymore. And with Park's a little bit tricky, a little bit sneaky, so I would be really heavy on the jab, on the low kicks, on the movement if I'm Brad Tavares, trying to throw hard single shots and avoid being where your back's near the fence and avoid kind of turning it into a brawl. And that's where you're going to get the better of it, because I feel like Park's going to eat these low kicks. I think that the jab is going to be effective. I feel like Tavares, he's going to shut down the wrestling that Park is going to bring. I mean, Tavares' wrestling defense is really good, and I just feel like Park's not going to be able to take him down and hold him down that effectively. Brad's chin is a question for me, man. I feel like his chin is definitely going. So that's what makes this fight a lot closer in my eyes. But I'm going to Tavares, man. I just think Tavares is going to be the better stand-up guy. I think that Park's going to struggle to back him up and get these combos going, because Tavares is going to be stinging him and landing hard shots as well. And I don't think that Park's going to be able to wrestle him. So I'm going to say Tavares gets a lot of damage off of his low kicks, lands that jab often, and just wins in Brad Tavares fashion. And ultimately, in the main event, we got a great matchup at flyweight between Brandon Royval and Tatsuro Taira. we got Brandon Royval, who is going on another title run. We saw him get one title opportunity already against Pantoja, come up short in that fight, but came back with a huge win over former UFC champion Brandon Morono in a main event in Mexico to put himself back in position for a title shot if he wins this fight over Tatsuro Taira, who's an undefeated prospect, taking a big step up in competition to take on Royval and potentially earn himself a title shot after a 5-0 start in the UFC. Taira has fought a lot of, not the greatest competition. His last fight, he did go in there and beat Alex Perez, although it was due to an injury. But Taira's looked really good, impressive. He comes out of Japan, which is a country that the UFC wants to market in, and they're fast-tracking him here with a good matchup to potentially earn a UFC title shot. So we'll see if he can come out here and beat Royval. He's getting his second UFC main event in a row. And stylistically, it's an interesting matchup, though, because we got Brandon Royval, who the guy's takedown defense is horrendous. He can't stop a takedown to save his life, and that's going to be an issue for him in this fight. He's likely going to get taken down. But what Brandon Royval does bring to the flyweight division and why he's so good is he has elite conditioning. He throws insane amount of volume. He has a really long reach. He throws a ton of jabs, and he's trying to kind of just touch you, pepper you, and then make you make a mistake, chase him, and then he'll come with one of these flying knees or wild strikes, and he's gotten some crazy highlight reel knockouts in the UFC. And Tatsuro Taira, I don't think, has really faced a striker that you could say is similar to Brandon Royval. I guess with the jab check hook game, you could put Edgar Chairez in there and say they're similar, but Chairez doesn't have the same dynamic ability as Royval, even though I do think he has a better lead hand attack style. But Royval, I think, is going to be trying to use a lot of jabs, check hooks. Taira's striking is getting better. He has the good straight shots down the middle, and he obviously has the threat of the level change, so it opens up his hands a little bit. He has punch power, but even though he keeps his hands high, he has solid defense. He doesn't really move his head too much. I feel like sometimes he can drop his hands when he shoots and be in range and get kind of clipped. So his striking is a little bit suspect to me. I think he needs to keep getting better with the striking, but his wrestling is good. I think he's going to be able to take down Royval pretty easily. And if I'm Taira, I'm just looking to stay heavy in half guard in this fight, kind of use that maybe modified crucifix from half guard that Taira likes to use, but don't be all aggressive, especially early trying to pass and get into these dominant positions, because one thing about Royval is the guy can't scramble. He can make you work to hold him down, and if Taira goes hard early and there's a lot of scrambles, Royval has proven that he has the conditioning to keep it going, whereas Taira hasn't really had that many experiences with that. So if I'm Taira, I'm going to take him down, be position over submission, try to stay heavy in half guard, and have an easy night. And if he does that, I think he'll win pretty easily. But if he goes out there and has an ego battle with Royval where he's trying to submit him and Royval can scramble, get back up to his feet, and he gives Royval more and more opportunities to knock him out, then that's where Royval could potentially get lucky, or not even get lucky, just use his skill set to get the win. But I think Taira should win this fight. I'm not a big fan of Royval, man. I don't pick him in a lot of his fights, and just feel like his style isn't the greatest for winning minutes. And at 125, especially when you get up into these highest levels in the weight class, I don't think you can really bank on guys getting finishes. But Taira, he's still green and he still needs to prove himself. So this is a good fight for him to do that. And I think one of the easier matchups for him near the top of the weight class. I think that Royval, he had that great win over Morono. That's true. But I didn't think either fighter looked great in that fight. I think Morono took time off after that because he knew it was a bad performance and he needed to kind of reset. So I'm not taking away anything from Royval, but I don't think it was the best Morono that he beat. And I just think Taira is going to fight smart and be able to decision him here. So I'm going with Tatsuro Taira in this one. I don't think he's going to finish. I don't think it's going to be anything spectacular, but I think he's going to be able to get the job done over Brandon Royval and move himself into that title picture. But Royval has to have a lot of motivation. I mean, if he wins this fight, he's getting another title shot. They're kind of using a young guy to try to catapult Taira into this position by using Royval, like I said. So Royval might be feeling some sort of way about that. But ultimately, I just think it's a bad matchup for Royval, and Taira's going to use the wrestling to get the win. So that's my pick in that fight. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Put a like down below. Put a comment down below. I really appreciate that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Go to patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. You'll get access to quite a few bets that I have this week and more content that's not on the channel. And you'll be supporting the channel, keeping it going, making sure these videos keep coming out for you guys. As far as my most confident pick of the week, I'm going to go with Temirov as my most confident pick. Parlay of the week is going to be Taira and Temirov. So I'll be back soon, guys, giving you guys some more content on the channel. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.